before we start talk about open source, Bitcoin self-custody, and all the things that you're doing, give us some overview of who you are and why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Sure. My name is Keith Mukai. I'm an open source developer from Chicago in the United States. I was a career programmer, and for pretty much my entire tech career, early on I was going after money, .coms, startups, right? Trying to get rich building the next great thing. They never worked out. I never got rich off of a VC funded startup or anything like that. All the startups I worked on flamed out. This is like the way most things go. But I just kept getting into the cycle of feeling just unfulfilled with the work I was doing. Like, as you get older, like, yeah, I want to be financially secure, but like my last one of my last startups that I joined was doing pharmaceutical industry market research with doctors. Like they would basically bribe a doctor to take a survey, which was really just a bribe, like literally a bribe. Like we're going to pay you $150 to answer this 10-minute survey. But the survey was really just a marketing campaign for the drug that they were being asked about. So it was just a legal way to bribe a doctor to watch an ad, essentially. And whatever, I helped build the technology platform for it. The company did well enough. But just every day, it's like, what am I doing? Like the work is not technically interesting. It's like probably sort of negative for society in general. uh, so I went through a bunch of years just trying to find a better way to spend my time. Actually did a major detour where I turned myself into a high school English teacher. And so I taught teenagers public high school for 2 years. And then, long story short, resigned and came back to technology. And then a few years later, I finally dug into Bitcoin. And this was it was 2017. And I'd heard about Bitcoin, for years before that. And as a programmer, it always sounded fascinating. But, the typical story, you need 3 touch points before you actually do anything about getting involved in Bitcoin. You hear about it, you do nothing. You hear about it, you do nothing. Maybe finally the 3rd or 4th or 10th time you get more involved. And it has just been this fascinating, like endless, like the rabbit holes have rabbit holes. And, even though it's been, it's 8 years now. And then the first 2 years, I didn't know anything. Like I was as noob as you can get. I made every mistake imaginable. You know, bought all the altcoins and lost all my money and all the value that they had in them. Took them down to zero. But once I learned more about Bitcoin, I started learning things like economics, understanding how the US dollar works in the world. And there's still a ton for me to learn. But it's so far, it's the only thing that I haven't gotten bored of. And it's not just technically interesting. I was just in Oslo for the Oslo Freedom Forum. And, you're directly meeting human rights activists from around the world. And there's a major component of what the HRF is doing with that conference that is all about educating and helping to build tools so the human rights activists can use Bitcoin in their work. And so, I mean, for me, Bitcoin just hits everything. Like, yes, it's my only method of savings. Like my retirement plan is Bitcoin. Period. I don't have a plan B or a plan C. It's just I'm very confident Bitcoin is going to work out. I've committed to it. Technically fascinating, and then just seeing the impact that it makes around the world, where I can't appreciate that. Like, I think Americans continue to struggle the most to appreciate what Bitcoin is and what it can do, for yourself or more importantly, just for the world. Because we are so privileged. I lived my entire adult life up until a couple years ago having no understanding of what the US dollar was and how it functioned in the world, what money was. I didn't have to care. Um, but yeah, just to see the global reach and the global possibilities of this one technology, it's crazy. It's everything.
There's a lot of really interesting stuff in there. Just to close the loop, and you said you're now an open source developer, so I guess there are multiple projects that you're currently working on.
Um, I wouldn't say currently. I started by working. When I say working, I mean contributing to as a volunteer dev. So like that's something I have to be very clear about. I started contributing to the Spectre desktop wallet in 2019, back when it was very new and there wasn't much adoption. And for the people who are newer to the space, before Sparrow wallet existed, which I think today is the most powerful, most prominent desktop software wallet, before Sparrow, Spectre Desktop was the thing to use for your home cold storage, set up your own multi-sig, all of that. So I was very active contributing to Spectre Desktop, and that it coincided with my interest in getting my own cold storage leveled up, wanting to start working with multi-sig, and then contributing to the wallet so that it could do more of the things that I wanted it to do. And then that has transitioned into discovering the SeedSigner project a couple of months after it started in 2021, which is also self-custody focused. And now that's become my primary focus. But anytime you're involved in the Bitcoin tech ecosystem, like the tendrils go everywhere. So like I wouldn't call myself a core developer, but I've interacted with Bitcoin Core, with those developers on certain pull requests, certain changes that people want to make in Bitcoin Core. And then SeedSigner itself relies on various other libraries, in open source libraries in the ecosystem. And so whenever I've needed a library to do something different for SeedSigner or for some other purpose, then I'll start working on that library and get those changes in.
Interesting. You said something really cool. I'm very curious about that because you said like there's so many rabbit holes. What's your most interesting rabbit hole of Bitcoin outside of Bitcoin itself that you kind of discovered so far?
I mean, the easy answer is just the econ side. Like when I was in college, I walked into college thinking I was going to be an econ major. Actually, I had never programmed before in my life as a freshman in college, and I took Econ 102. It was microeconomics, and I hated it. I hated it so much that I left freshman year all depressed because I'm like, I have no idea what my major is going to be now. Like I'm totally lost. I'm not going to be an econ major. And thankfully, I found programming and turned myself into a programmer and graduated with a computer science degree. But after that first introduction to economics, I just never spent any time on it and just never understood like what the entire field was or why I should even care. But then, like I said, once I started getting into Bitcoin, I think it's, aside from the tech curiosity, to really understand why Bitcoin might be important, why it matters, like you have to understand the global economics side of things, at least a little bit. And like I said, I was starting at zero. And so every little bit that I would read and understand global econ a little bit better, I was like, oh my God, being a programmer and being so siloed in just the pure tech nerd world, I was just completely removed from the econ, side of things. And so for me, that was just a giant expansion of my understanding of things.
But you got Bitcoin without economics background and you just like got the tech background and you got to have economic knowledge with Bitcoin afterwards. You got kind of orange pit.
Yeah. I mean, it was the stickiness of the technology, right? So I said I started in 2017, and all I cared about was making money at the time. I knew nothing about it. All I knew was number go up, I should buy some. And so I rode that 2017 pump into December, and then like I did everything wrong, traded out into altcoins and lost all that value into 2018, 2019. And then midway through 2019, I'm looking around at all the altcoin wreckage and then seeing Bitcoin surviving. And when I started, I was like, Bitcoin is like the boring, slow, old dinosaur coin. Like, why do people even care about this thing? And then, a year and a half later, it's the only survivor. And so I was forced to be like, okay, what is it about this thing? Why did it survive when all this other crap, went to zero? And so that kept it alive as a technology for me. And so I had to understand, okay, at least from a tech perspective, why did it survive? But then increasingly more and more of the explanations broadened out into these more like macroeconomic reasons.
It's super interesting because I hear that message a lot. Like I'm a software developer, but I kind of got into software development and was not made for it. I even programmed at a company for like 3 years. It just I kind of got pulled out from the CEO to get the sales job in the same company, just because I didn't like the programming and I really loved interacting with people. But still, I have a lot of contact with tech people. Some of my best friends are tech people, developers, just from school and stuff like that. And I hear from that community a lot the same thing that you're saying, like it will be replaced by better technology. It's slow, it's boring, like there's nothing exciting about Bitcoin, like all those things where I'm like, okay, there's we like that it's slow. Like we like that it's boring, like it has to be predictable and all those things. But maybe as a techie, as a developer that came from that and had to learn the economic sides after that, how would you describe to tech people the bullish case for people for Bitcoin? Because I think we talk a lot about the bullish cases from like a philosophical standpoint, for human rights standpoint, for economic standpoint, but we never really talk weirdly enough about the tech side of you.
Yeah, I mean, one of my tech blind spots that prevented me from understanding or appreciating Bitcoin early on was there's a like a I don't want to say social component, but there's a human component in terms of network adoption, right? Like network adoption is a technical concept, but it involves people making choices to become part of this network, right? Mining companies to invest money to become part of this network. And so for me as a programmer, and I don't have a background in network engineering, right? Like networking layers, right? So that's as far away as you can get to my side of the, like within the tech world, we are very segmented and isolated from each other, right? Like I don't understand how networking works at all. But so that was one of my blind spots that yeah, like you said, I'm looking at transactions per second, the speed of the thing, all that. I'm like, yeah, like it's just an upgrade waiting to happen. And not being able to wrap my brain around the power of network adoption and what that means. That each person who chooses to join the network, right? They're making an active choice, whether it's out of desire or it's out of economic interest. If you're a miner investing to build, a new Bitcoin mine, each decision to join that network is obviously adding to that network's power, and it's an exponential web, right? Like I forget, there's some like law for the size of a network, and it's exponential, growth and power.
I know. I will. keep talking. I
Yeah.
might think about it.
But see, this is one problem. All these economic laws have pushed out the other laws on the tech side in my brain. But I think for somebody who's just trained as a non-network programmer, it's just hard to grasp what that network adoption power really means. And so yeah, I was like, oh well, if something's better, then we'll just move to it, right? That's logical. But not really understanding the inertia of this massive network is currently sitting, the Schelling point of Bitcoin, right? That like, yeah, I can go out and design the next great, algorithm or whatever, but until I get enough people to move with me, I'm just one guy like shouting in the void, doing nothing, right? I've accomplished nothing. But I think it's really hard for nerds to grasp that there is this human decision point of joining the network that really influences, the power of something like this.
Do you
And
mean Metcalfe's law? Sorry to.
yes, that sounds right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like as a network grows, the interconnectivity, because it's exponential, is adding one node is more valuable than just that one unit than you would think. It adds an exponential richness and depth to the network. And also, even for a tech person, I don't think we have any real analogies to appreciate what decentralization really means. Like I've always struggled to explain this to non-Bitcoiners, because I mean it's already confusing. But in outsider, they're like, well, so who runs Bitcoin? Or like my older relatives. I'm like, oh, so you work for Bitcoin? Because they just think it's a company, right? Like, yeah, I'm Keith at Bitcoin.com. Right? uh, um, but even on the tech side, at least for my generation of programmer, it's just like I'm old enough that things like Napster and file sharing networks were on the rise. But just to really grasp the power of decentralization, it just takes time. It just takes exposure, and it's not something that I was ever taught in my computer science courses. So again, it was just a big blind spot on the tech side that I just couldn't appreciate until I spent more time digging into it.
It's something that I actually think a lot about when we move forward with the technical innovation, with AI, with all the developments, where everything is just copy and paste. And I'm fascinated by how easy it is now for me to copy myself. Like I wanted to make some, because there's like some Mika laws and like weird stuff going on at the end of the podcast, that I want to just like have a small disclaimer, saying like, hey, this is not financial advice and all those things. And I did not really want to say it myself. So I was like, hey, I'll just clone my voice and let it AI say it. And I was like, oh shit, that's really good. Like that's how I speak, because Riverside has that, and Riverside has like, I don't know, 600 hours of me speaking.
Yeah.
So it has a good data set, and then I clone my voice, and I'm like, that really sounds like me. And now I just use the AI voice. And I don't know if this podcast already has it, but probably has it. Like at the very end of the podcast, when everything is out and done, there's like a 5-second Robin AI speaking that this is not financial advice and all those things, where we come to a point where like you cannot be sure about anything except Bitcoin. Like that's like the decentralized thing that's verifiable, that's like digital scarce and all those things, and that's the only thing that you can really prove and verify in the digital world. What's the worth of that? Like, that's kind of amazing to me. Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. oh, maybe also here.